Most older men have been getting hit on for years, and they have no idea, not because the signals weren't there, but because nobody told them what those signals actually look like when a woman is attracted to someone she respects enough to approach carefully. What we're covering today are 7 specific questions and conversational moves that women use when they are genuinely interested in an older man, rooted in female psychology, social signaling research, and the specific way attraction expresses itself when a woman is being thoughtful rather than obvious. One of them is a question so common that most men answer it and move on, completely missing what it was actually asking. Another involves a conversational pattern so consistent that researchers can predict it, but that most men experience as ordinary small talk. And the 7th, the climax, reveals the deepest truth about how women signal attraction through questions rather than declarations. All 7. Let's go. Here is the honest premise. Women, particularly women who are attracted to older men, rarely express that attraction directly in early interaction, not because they are being coy, because the social risk of direct expression feels asymmetric, because they have learned that indirect signals are safer to send and easier to retract if they are not received. So the attraction gets embedded in questions, in conversational patterns, in the specific things they ask and how they ask them. Today, we decode exactly what those questions are and what they are actually communicating underneath their surface content. 7 signals, real psychology. Let's get into it. Bold claim. When a woman asks an older man about his life experience, not once, not generally, but specifically and repeatedly, she is almost never just making conversation. She is gathering information about someone she has already decided is worth knowing better. Here is the psychology. Research on information-seeking behavior in social interaction documents that we ask questions about the things that matter to us. Generic social questions, what do you do, are distributed broadly. Specific, follow-up, depth-seeking questions. What did you learn from that? How did that change how you see things? What would you do differently? Require genuine investment to formulate and genuine interest to sustain. When a woman asks these depth-seeking questions about your history, when she wants to understand not just what you did, but what it meant and what it produced in you, she is doing something specific. She is building a picture of who you are that goes well beyond what ordinary social interest requires. She is, in psychological terms, investing in your interiority. And we invest in the interiority of people who matter to us in ways that extend beyond casual acquaintance. Scenario: a man named Harold, 59, was at a professional gathering when a woman named Vanessa, 37, began asking him about a career transition he had mentioned briefly. The questions kept coming, not surface questions, deep ones. What made you finally make the move? What surprised you about who you became in that chapter? Do you ever miss the version of yourself before that decision? Harold answered each question genuinely and moved on, assuming she was simply a curious conversationalist. A mutual friend told him later, "Harold, she was completely fascinated by you. Those questions weren't small talk. She was trying to understand who you are." Harold said, "I thought she was just being polite." She wasn't. She was, in the only language currently available to her, telling him that she found him worth understanding. What most older men do wrong, they answer the question and deflect, pivoting to ask about her, assuming that sustained interest in them must be social courtesy rather than genuine attraction. What actually works? Receive the interest with genuine warmth. Engage with the questions honestly and specifically. And then, with equal genuine curiosity, ask questions of your own that demonstrate you are equally interested in her. The mutual curiosity is the connection forming in real time. Bold claim: when a woman asks an older man for his opinion on something outside his professional domain, on a decision she is navigating, a perspective she is forming, a situation she is trying to understand, she is almost never primarily seeking information. She is seeking connection through your perspective. Here is the psychology. Opinion-seeking behavior in social interaction serves multiple functions simultaneously. On the surface, gathering information. Underneath, determining whether this person sees the world in ways that resonate with how you see it. Whether their judgment is the kind of judgment you can trust. Whether being known by them would feel good. When she asks your opinion on something personal, a career decision, a relationship dynamic, a life choice she is navigating, she is inviting you into her actual interior life, not the social version, the real one. That invitation is significant. We do not invite people we feel nothing for into our actual decision-making. We invite people whose perspective we have already decided carries weight. Mini story. A woman named Chloe, 29, had been in several conversations with a man named Edward, 56, over the course of a few weeks. She began asking him about decisions she was navigating, professional ones, personal ones, things she described as situations she couldn't quite find clarity on. Edward answered genuinely each time, and each time she seemed to receive his perspective with a specific quality of genuine consideration. His son noticed. "She asks you about everything, Dad," Edward said. "She has a lot going on." His son laughed. "She's not coming to you for answers. She's coming to you to spend time with someone whose judgment she trusts. That's different." Edward sat with that for a week before he understood it completely. Bold claim. Some of the most significant signals of female interest are not in the content of the questions asked, they are in the timing. Questions that naturally extend an interaction beyond its natural conclusion are almost always motivated by something other than the information they are seeking. Here is the behavioral psychology. When we want to be near someone but don't have an explicit reason to extend the interaction, we create implicit reasons. Questions that require elaborated answers, topics that naturally branch into other topics, curiosity that leads to more curiosity. Watch for questions that arrive at the natural ending point of an interaction, the moment when both people are about to part, that restart the conversation. The "actually, can I ask you something?" as you're both preparing to leave. The question that launches another 15 minutes of conversation at the moment the interaction should have concluded. That specific timing, the question that arrives precisely when the interaction is ending, is the clearest possible behavioral signal that she is not ready for the interaction to end, and that reluctance to have it end is always worth noticing. Bold claim. When a woman asks personal questions earlier in an interaction than social convention typically supports, questions that go deeper, faster than ordinary small talk warrants, she is almost always operating from genuine attraction that is producing impatience with surface conversation. The psychology is direct. Social convention establishes a relatively predictable timeline for depth of disclosure in new relationships. Surface first. Deeper gradually, personal slowly. This convention exists because depth too early creates vulnerability before trust is established. When someone breaks this convention, when they go deep, fast, early, they are communicating something specific, that the usual timeline feels too slow for how interested they already are, that waiting for the gradual deepening of ordinary acquaintance feels frustrating when genuine curiosity is already present. When she asks something personal early, something about your actual life, your actual history, your actual interior experience, she is in effect skipping the formalities because the formalities feel unnecessary when genuine interest is already established. Notice this. Not to exploit the vulnerability it represents, to receive it with the specific warmth and genuine reciprocity it deserves. Bold claim, questions that assume a continued relationship, that reference future conversations, future meetings, future shared experiences, are among the clearest signals available that a woman is interested in more than the current interaction. You should tell me more about that sometime. I'd love to hear how that turns out. Next time you're here, will you tell me about... Each of these questions has something specific in common. They assume a next time. They plant the expectation of continued contact. They create a conversational reason to meet again that the speaker has designed rather than found. This is not accidental. It is deliberate, if not always conscious, behavior. The attachment system doing what it does when it finds someone worth continuing to be near, creating the conditions for continued proximity. When she builds these future references into ordinary conversation, when she plants seeds of continued contact in the middle of current contact, she is telling you, in the clearest language available to her, that she is thinking about more than today. Bold claim, questions about your schedule, your routine, your current life situation, asked with a quality of genuine interest that goes beyond social necessity, are often the most directly available signal that a woman is considering how you might fit into her life. Do you come here often? Are you usually around on weekends? Do you live nearby? What does your week typically look like? On the surface, ordinary conversation. Underneath, availability mapping, the specific information gathering behavior of someone who is deciding whether pursuing something is practically possible. Most older men answer these questions as logistical exchanges and move on. The correct reading is different. She is not asking about your schedule because she is curious about your schedule. She is asking because she is trying to determine whether there is room in your schedule and in your life for her. That is not small talk. That is due diligence on a decision she is already considering making. This is the truth reveal, the deepest psychological insight in this entire video. Bold claim, the most significant question a woman asks when she is attracted to an older man is almost never the question she appears to be asking. It is a container, a social vehicle, for the real communication happening underneath. And most men respond to the container and miss the communication entirely. Here is the deepest truth. Women who are attracted to older men, who respect them, who are somewhat intimidated by their experience and presence, who are aware of the social complexity of expressing interest directly, almost never say, "I find you compelling," in those words. Instead, they ask questions that require him to reveal himself, that create the conditions for genuine mutual knowing, that produce the specific experience of being genuinely curious about someone while creating the conditions for that someone to be genuinely curious about them. The question is not the point. The interaction the question creates is the point. When she asks you something that has no practical necessity behind it, when the question could have gone unasked and nothing would have been different except that you wouldn't have spent the next 20 minutes in conversation, she is telling you something real. She wanted those 20 minutes. She created them through the only mechanism currently available to her, and the question was the door she opened to walk through. Mini story. A woman named Natalie, 32, had been finding reasons to speak with a man named Arthur, 64, for 3 weeks. Questions about the building they both worked in. Questions about a project he had been involved with. Questions about a book she had noticed on his desk. Arthur had answered each one helpfully and returned to his work. A colleague finally said something directly. "Arthur, Natalie isn't interested in the building's history. She's interested in you. The questions are how she keeps talking to you." Arthur looked at his colleague for a long moment. "I thought she was just curious." "She is," his colleague said. "About you specifically. That's the point." Arthur had missed 3 weeks of someone telling him something genuinely significant, not through declaration, through the persistent, specific, entirely human language of questions that were never just questions. That is the deepest truth about how women signal attraction through conversation. They ask. And the asking itself, its frequency, its depth, its specific direction, is the signal, not what is asked. That they keep asking, that they keep finding reasons to know more about you, that your answers, whatever they are, produce more questions rather than closure. That sustained curiosity, that ongoing, investment-driven, genuine desire to understand more of who you are is not ordinary conversation. It is someone telling you, in the most careful language available to them, that you are worth knowing. Receive it accordingly. Here's the question I want to leave you with. Is there someone in your life right now, someone who keeps asking you things, who keeps finding reasons to continue conversations, who seems genuinely and specifically curious about who you are, that you have been explaining away as simply being friendly? Because friendship asks questions, and attraction asks those questions. The depth-seeking ones, the ones that reference future time together, the ones that arrive when the conversation should have ended but somehow didn't. Pay attention differently. The signals have been there. Drop in the comments. Have you ever realized in retrospect that someone was signaling genuine interest through questions you completely misread as ordinary conversation? Tell me what happened. I read every single one. And if today gave you a new lens for the interactions already in your life, subscribe. Every week we bring this level of honest psychological depth to the questions that actually matter. See you in the next one. Pay attention. The signals are already there.